Good afternoon, friends. It's Wednesday, September 23rd. Time for a daily reflection. Yesterday, at our now weekly COVID-19 news briefing, Solano County was rewarded for its hard work on slowing the spread of the coronavirus. We were assigned to a less restrictive level. Yay! This allows us to, quote, open, unquote, more. I learned this from reading a friend's Facebook post, and somebody wrote on there that churches can reopen. Well, let me first remind you that churches never were closed. We've certainly been redoing the way we've done things, but churches were never closed. And then I got an email and a text asking if I knew if we could reopen the doors for worship again, now. Well, let me offer a few words about that. First, I know that a number of you would not be returning to in-person worship right now because of major concerns about safety. I fully understand those concerns, and I endorse those concerns. I don't think we're out of the COVID-19 woods yet myself. True, we in Solano County have been on the low end of both cases and deaths for a while now, but we're not COVID-free. Second, I understand that some of the regulations are in place now that were in place a few months ago when other churches raced to hold in-person indoor worship services. The major regulation is that you can only have 25% occupancy or 100 people, whichever is the lower amount. So for us, it will be the 25% because we don't have 400 plus chairs in our worship area. With the 25% occupancy, that means we can have at most 37 people in worship at a given time. So with Chris, Sue, Laura, Joan, Kevin, and either Rob or Mr. B and myself, that means there's only space for 30 more people to be in worship. It's rather limiting. So even if we go with 2 worship services, that's only 60 people who can worship on a given Sunday. Also, it's currently unclear what we will be able to do during worship. We know that the virus is an airborne virus. So will singing be either limited or eliminated? How about speaking? I suspect that everyone will be required to wear a mask. Will I have to wear a mask during the worship service as well as when I'm preaching? And how would that affect those who hear? Questions. I don't have an answer, just questions. In the last series of conditions, it applies to the time as well. How long could we be worshiping? And what might we do to provide a different worship style? What would we do about providing a bulletin for every person? I suspect we'll continue to email, and you'll either have to print off or use your own tablet or phone as you read a bulletin on a Sunday morning. And it would be certainly, another question would be about communion. You'll probably need to bring your own communion elements. Now, some congregations have been using a pre-filled grape juice and wafer packet. They're commercially available. And when the pandemic first struck, a few of my pastor friends shared horror stories about those containers exploding. I don't think that really was the truth. I have a feeling that when people tried to open the packet portion that had the grape juice in, spills galore happened. I tried it once, and that's exactly what happened to me. That little plastic edge or top just wouldn't let go, and all of a sudden it did. And grape juice all over the place. It's not always easy when you're met with spills. And I suppose practice would make perfect. But how many practice moments do you want to have? And then there's the question about cleaning. Assuming that we need to hold more than one service, might we return to our former style of traditional and contemporary worship? But then how much time in between do we need to have the place clean? And who would do that? Do we need to clean the cloth chairs, or are they resistant to the COVID particles? There's great debate, and I've heard answers on both sides of that fence. Yes, you need to clean them. No, you don't need to. I don't know who to believe anymore. And another thought. There was a statement that people should have to reserve their place in worship, and that we would have to make sure that the same group worships at the same time each time we do gather. That also seems very limiting. There'd be no room for guests to attend our worship service. And that certainly runs counter to my theology about worship, that our services are open for all who wish to attend when they wish to attend. So sign up for your spot. How does that sound? Like buying a ticket for the theater. I'm not sure how to feel about it. So as you can see, there are a great many questions to answer before we can move forward to our hoped-for in-person worship returning anytime soon. And while some activities are returning, and again, with limited numbers of people, you can go to the theater, but it can only be 25% full. I hear the malls can be open, but 50% occupancy, how are they going to figure that one out? We're still trying to figure it all out anyway, and we will eventually. But one thing does seem clear to me. You expressed a desire in our earlier survey. You wanted us to continue to post and record our worship times. We'll continue to do just that, so that you can worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9:30 at the moment, or whenever it is that we worship, or whenever it is that you want to worship. You can worship in your pajamas. You can get all dressed up. You don't have to worry about anybody seeing you. All we'll see is your scrolling name as you say like or don't like. I do know that JD and Jesse are working on installing the camera and upgrading our recording system, and I hope that work can be accomplished sometime soon. I do know we will also continue with our parking lot worship and communion times. The next one, Sunday, October 4th. It's a week from Sunday. And I hope those of you in the area will be able to participate in that worship opportunity. I know you'll be gathering outside and you'll hear from the speakers that are placed outside, or you could watch on your tablet or phone based on your own availabilities. We'll have communion afterwards. Service inside will be a service of the word. Now, I do look forward to our gathering again. And I hope and I pray that it will be within this calendar year. But I've tended to become overly cautious since March. And I want to be as sure as possible that we are in a healthy space. So until that moment, I will be clear that I am not willing to put us at risk. Until I am abundantly clear that we are safe, we won't return to what will become a new norm for us in worship. It has caused me to think and to wonder, what was worship like in those early days following Jesus' death and resurrection? As those disciples gathered on the first Pentecost in the upper room, how did they worship? As Paul went around the Mediterranean and preached first in synagogues and then in, home communities, what was worship like at that point? I'm suspecting that the worship was more about the gathering of the disciples to gain strength and support from one another. We do that even though we're deployed in our homes. But I do know that it wasn't the songs that were sung. They didn't have the ones we like so much. And what did the worship look like during the plagues in Europe in the Middle Ages? Did everyone gather at church? Or did most folks stay home protecting themselves from the sickness? I suspect the concern was not about opening up, but rather being safe, just as it is today. So I'll see you Sunday on Facebook or YouTube. I'll see you in worship. I'll see your pictures here in the building. And it's a wonder to see you all. And until then, please remember, wash your hands a couple times a day, 20 seconds at a time. Use hand lotion to make them nice and soft afterwards. Stay home if you're not feeling well, especially with congestion and chest issues. Practice the important physical distancing. Stay 6 feet apart from everybody else. If you're part of the family, stay as close as you can. Love one another. Wear your masks. And of course, Sergeant Esterhaus says, be careful out there.